Let's continue our learning spree. To take your business to the next level, you might want to consider the power of performance branding. It's like hitting two birds with one stone, building your brand image while also driving revenue growth. This approach focuses on using data driven insights to optimize your branding campaigns for maximum ROI. But how do you actually build a performance branding approach? How do you align your branding efforts with your business goals? What role does data play in developing a performance branding approach? To answer all of these questions and more, we bring to you our next keynote session. Here's welcoming Anne Boyd to share her take on how businesses can combine the science of performance marketing with the art of branding to drive bottom line results. As the Chief Marketing Officer of Stoplight and is a strategic visionary and marketing veteran backed by 15 plus years of experience in leading high value companies. Her focus is to leverage the transformative power of technology to advance businesses forward. Her ability to choose the right channels and tactics for branding has helped companies build their brand equity and drive revenue growth. Folks, get ready to be blown away by her expertise and insights. And the virtual mic and stage is all yours.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. So thank you so much, Manali, for that really kind introduction. And thank you to Sana and Rhea as well for the whole team at Grazidi for having this event and also for this valuable discussion. I've participated throughout the day and gotten a lot of value out of it. And I think one of the key takeaways I saw is, as our hosts mentioned this morning, this is a challenging economic time, and we need to think about how marketing matters. And so it's important for us to get creative and learn from each other. So this is really a valuable moment for it. To kick us off, as Manali mentioned, my talk is about performance branding, unleashing the power of performance branding. And I wanted to start off with a little poll. So bear with me while I get this posted up, because I'd like to get a sense of how we feel about brand versus demand. So we'll see how this, oh, they're coming in fast. Okay. Oh, yeah. Wow. This is great. And you all can see, hopefully. I'll check the chat in a second. So a lot of brands so far. Demand is, coming in a second, and then don't know and no, neither. That's good because you're actually here at this event. So presumably you want to get something out of it. Okay, great. This gives me a great landscape to start. And I think I'm going to close it right now because I know we have very limited time here. So let's see. So now I'm going to go into my presentation. And we'll talk a little bit about how we've sort of gotten to where we are, and then how we can perhaps pick a sort of more powerful combined effort. So that's really my hope today. So we're going to talk about how, we saw in the results, we've got team brand and team demand. And I think I've experienced this in my roles, and particularly recently in the startup world. I think very aggressive growth goals. I mean, everywhere has it, but there was kind of this view of like, well, are you a brand marketer or are you a demand marketer? And the reality is that there's so much merit to both, and we shouldn't have to choose, right? So how did we get to this place? Well, one of the things that we can look back and see is that marketing has been, brand as an anchor, obviously, of business. Equity has been measured in various ways over time. I'm sure we've all been privy to different formulas. This particular message is from Harvard Business Review in 2000. And what really strikes me out of this is that they're talking about how a brand equity measurement is really going to be help you interpret your past and then design for the future. It feels very static. And what we're talking about with performance brand is getting into, and this is from a consulting firm and out of Germany, but they talk about the multi-dimensional analysis that gives companies instant insights into the performance of their brands in real time. And I think that's really important to keep in mind as we are in this era of what are we looking at? Trends that are driving this change is the rise of digital, more in-house marketing is giving us access to data. So one of the things that we've all often as marketers, oops, sorry, my jumpy mouse. I was trying to get back to the chat so I can keep track if you guys have any comments. So the rise of digital, more in-house marketing. So we have access to information. I'm sure many of you remember the days where it was like, oh, the agency has to send a report of what we got on this thing. And then you're asking for more data about what was it like. And often it's anecdotal. Now we have so much in our own purview and we can constantly look at it. And the educated consumer is a huge factor here because they're pulling information to them that we no longer get the privilege of choosing to push everything out. I want to shout out Haley Raymond here, who has talked on this subject quite a bit. You can find her in some podcasts. She's at HelloFresh, which is a brand that has done a remarkable job in the marketing area, and so that was really inspirational for me how she talked about that from her perspective. And I also was inspired by this quote, which talks about how performance branding is really where creativity is rooted in data and performance is fueled by brand. And I think that the key thing here is how they work together. And so we really want to think about how do we do that? So that's where I'm going to get into what does it look like in practice? Now we have a very short time here, so this is going to be a real quick rundown. I'm happy to share more personal anecdotes too from my various experiences. I won't have time to get into a lot of things, but I did want to talk a little bit about how we're reinventing a classic. I know early on career-wise, there was, these clear sort of silos of organization where we looked at marketing efforts really driven by people that were experts in a particular channel or a particular audience, and sometimes multiple. But the idea is that we really customized how they viewed how we would deliver messaging and measure in those areas. The reality is, in a performance brand model and the way we sort of work now is you can't think of it as all these separate channels and separate targets. Yeah, you might have multiple audiences that you have multiple segments, for example, that you're targeting. However, you have to think cohesively about what the, business objective is, who are your targets, and then what's your, what are you wanting them to do, and how do those actions work together, and create a strategy that brings those elements together so that it's all taken into account. So you get the ability to have the harmony of audiences that can pick and choose their consumption models, and also messages that will work to activate them on all those platforms and the variety of folks. Now, I wanted to take a quick minute to go down a little bit into the weeds. So get your gardening tools out. This is a moment where we have to look honestly at, yes, there's still a lot of data. This is an area where, as like we heard from our marketing panel earlier, there are so many things to measure. And this type of model does not make that go away. We still need to collect these points and look at them cohesively. And that's where it gets tricky, because what I know where I got kind of lost when I started was like thinking about how do I take all these data points that seem so obvious to me, and then tell a story to senior executives, the board, to other folks in the organization in different areas that need to understand. And I think that was one of the things that became challenging, especially in the construct of there being two different types of marketers, because that was what sort of plagued how I think we were thought. I approached it. And so what I wanted to do was think about how to present things, and this is very standard, but I just want to share that I think that this model of a funnel, or you could have it be a flywheel, whatever works best in your organization. But the idea is we're still using that breadth of metrics, KPIs, to tell a story about how the brand work. Often it's largely brand that's driving that top of funnel, and then how the efforts to convert, to engage and then convert at the middle and bottom of the funnel all work together. And instead of seeing it as a handoff, it's a cohesive unit, which is what was always intended, but I think, at least in my experience, often didn't happen, because we would have this view that there's brand people doing this, and then the demand people are down here doing this. The reality is multiple touches, multiple pieces of content. There's so much that people are consuming in so many different ways, and it all serves to move the effort along. And that's where I'll get into, how do we have rising tides lift all boats, right? So this is really the effort that we want to create, is benefits, right? And to the business. And this came up a lot in some previous sessions too. Like, if we're not making money, obviously not working. But so, we have to track to those metrics. But one of the things I see people getting a little lost in, and I think at least I struggled with this too. I don't know if anyone else can relate, but when we're going through an iterative process day in and day out, in our marketing efforts, everything can be, we have such amazing ability to experiment. And the challenge, I think, the trap that some people can fall into, is trying to find an answer, and forget that this is a constant flow of information that can inform action. And if we view that constant cycle happening, then you don't have the pressure of feeling like, oh, I have to have that exact metric and know exactly what that means and draw some precise conclusion, which you know I may be biased here, coming from a brand background, but from when I started getting into the demand world and learning that methodology, sometimes I felt a lot of pressure on myself to be like, oh, this, I have to have a really explicit, perfect conclusion. You won't always, right? And if you focus on the action, then you're going to keep building forward. So that, and then with that, I wanted to share, this is kind of an idea that it may help you, it may not. I think we as marketers can sit here and be like, oh, performance branding, I get that idea, it's a panacea. But how do we get executives and other stakeholders on board, and to sort of start to shift their thinking around this subject? And so I wanted to sort of put into my mind a framework that I could reflect on in those moments when, like I said, I don't want to have this, I'm not going to know the exact thing that is driving the brand to be, this big, that then drives this action. I don't have to think about the exact connection, but I can think about how I designed the system, or the team designed the system. How did we craft messaging and create an architecture that supports an overall, that's driven by a business strategy, and what does that mean? And then how we it also are constantly iterating on that. So the refine part is really about, what are we bringing to the table that helps us understand it better. And I think, again, being able to articulate that action, as opposed to an answer. And then also thinking about, of course, what's working, bringing in a highlight whenever you're talking to another stakeholder, something that is working and what you're learning from it, and being able to reflect back. Now, that's a lot on the, yes, of course, the numbers are what people want to know, but also, the brand exposure. I mean, often those anecdotes, are so compelling for people. So weave those together and kind of remind yourself that if you think about articulating how why you designed it the way you did, how you're doing it and what you're seeing as a result, and then that it is this continuous process. So I come back to this quote because, again, I just really love how succinctly, and this is the No Good consulting agency I pulled there. They have a great article on this whole area as well, and a whole model and everything. So it's really, there's great information out there. But again, this creativity rooted in data. So it's not just creativity for creativity's sake, and that performance is fueled by the brand, that you cannot get great copy or really compelling video or anything that's going to drive someone to do something without that brand fueling it. And so finally, I have a couple final thoughts. I wanted to share this idea that I really love about how we think about insights. And something that really hit for me is that insights, which are really the powerful element of any kind of, analytic effort, are about specifics, right? People, categories, products, businesses, there are specifics there, and they're synthesized and presented in a fresh and stimulating way. And I think I really kind of, didn't want it, like maybe the yin yang would have been a better like visual on this slide, because it's really about how those things work together and to provide insights that people can work with, and that are going to make you and your team valuable to the business. So my last, I wasn't looking at the time, but I'll wrap up now. So my last sort of call to action for all of you is, let's not pick sides, right? Let's not fall into that trap of thinking that there's one or the other way of being. And let's focus on insights so that are really drawn together with big ideas and supported by data. And then emphasize action, that we're moving forward. There's this iterative process. Nothing is static anymore. And I think that's a big opportunity for us. So I hope that helps to some extent. And ultimately, we're all on the same team. So yay. Let's all work together. And I don't know if time permits. I did have one more poll we could wrap up. I don't know if anyone's going to feel like they are, let's see, really able to take this. Let me see. Is that working? Is that show? Let's see. Show on stage. Anyone wants to vote real quick? And that'll be it. I'll take any questions too. I'll check the chat while you guys are voting. Still a lot of brands. Okay. Well, that's only 2 votes. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. Let's see. Okay. Well, I don't see any, let's see, questions. Brand is what drives them. I agree. I mean, and there's so many ways to look at this, right? And I think sometimes we're just, it's semantics, right? So it's which word that's popular this decade. But I do think that there are some really solid changes in, technology, consumer behavior, management and operations that really make this such a real phenomenon, and one that we can actually, I think, benefit overall as marketers, in both camps, or whatever, that we can bring that whole those concepts together and reinforce why they work together. So that is that. I will hide. Okay, so the poll results. All right, pretty close to similar spread. We got a few performance converts, and I will close that. And thank you. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Anne. Thank you
Yeah,
so
of course.
much. A true marketer will be on both the sides, team brand and team demand. It was great. It was absolutely fun. So,
Oh, great.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne, for actionable insights and tips and tricks. And
Thank
truly,
you so much.
yes,
Take care. And
truly,
feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I didn't put it up, but connect with me.
I will, for sure. Truly, branding is more than just adding your logo and everything. It's about creating an emotional connection with your customers, telling your brand story, and differentiating yourself from your competitors. And the performance branding approach is what can help you get there. All aboard the Marketing Refocus Express. We're making a quick pit stop for some much needed caffeine before we continue our marketing journey. So, whether it's an iced latte, iced coffee, or tea, grab your favorite beverage and let's power up those marketing engines. We'll be departing for 15 minutes, so don't be late. When we return, we'll dive right into our next panel discussion, community based marketing, the super tool to win your customers. And also a gentle reminder, please head over to the booth and lounge area to connect with our experts and grab a chance to win an Amazon gift voucher.